And what is going on, guys? Okay, first of all, I just want to thank every single one of you for helping us reach over 2 million views on the You're Driving Me Crazy episode in only a few weeks. That is absolutely insane. Thank you guys so much. So this episode did take a while to make, and because you guys seem to enjoy it, I thought I would make a quick behind the scenes video so you guys can see what actually goes into the making of an episode like this. So without further ado, let's get started.
J'ai une idée.
This is Alois. He's the guy who comes up with all the crazy ideas. The first thing we did is we got together for a big brainstorming session and just, threw ideas at each other and tried to figure out in which direction we were going to go. We finally settled on Lumpy taking his driving test with Flippy and wrote down every action and every joke that would take place. And we ended up with this masterpiece. Gorgeous. Next step, storyboarding. A storyboard is a series of drawings that lay out the sequence of scenes in a film. It's used to visually describe every shot of the episode, so it's basically a comic strip. To demonstrate, I'll play a scene from the episode synced with the storyboard.
Oh!
And as you can see, at this point the episode is pretty much written, and it's ready to be animated. Every shot is assigned to a number. This helps with file management and organization. Now, I actually spent way too much time drawing the storyboard. Since I animated the entire thing myself, simple stick figure sketches like these would have been more than enough, since this particular style of animation doesn't directly rely on a storyboard or an animatic to set everything to the right scale and blah blah blah. But I just wanted to practice my drawing, and also potentially show it off for a behind the scenes video like this. The storyboard is the first thing I refer to before designing a background, building the shot, or animating the character. For instance, here I can see that I need to design the interior of a driving school. I need to design it with an open door and elements on the wall indicating that it's a driving school, which leads us to the next part, background design. For this particular episode, I designed all the backgrounds and assets in Inkscape. Now, I'm not sponsored by any of the software I'll be talking about in this video, I just find that they work best for me. Inkscape is a free vector-based drawing program. And unlike Paint or Photoshop that are raster-based, Inkscape uses curves and geometry based off mathematical equations. Using the Bezier curve, for instance, it's extremely easy to create perfect curves and shapes without any line shake. There are no pixels, so you can zoom in as much as you want without any decrease in resolution. Also, a tablet isn't even needed. Every background and every object used in the episode was designed right here. And as you can see, there is no 3D. It's just a bunch of shapes stacked on top of each other to give the illusion of perspective. Some of the assets were traced from the show, like this car for instance, to keep it true to the original cartoons, but a good 99% of the backgrounds were designed by me, my cousin, and Nimmo, who also provided me with some pretty cool sound effects. Some other assets were traced from images I found online, like this fancy car or the spaghetti. It's always good to use references. Some of the pictures were taken by me, such as the inside of my car. I traced over that to create the inside of Flippy's driving car. Now, before we carry on with the video, I would just like to quickly talk about our sponsor, Yiihuu. Yiihuu is an online learning platform containing courses about all kinds of digital art, ranging from anything to 3D modeling in Blender to creating advanced scenery. Their courses will teach you everything you need to know in order to model, rig, texture, and animate, for instance, this dwarf warrior, this photorealistic cat, or this cool female character. This particular course only uses free software such as Blender to create a character for Unreal Engine 4. Really cool stuff. For more info, check out the links in the video description. Once I had all the assets and backgrounds, it was time to rig the characters. Now, this was by far what took the most time to create. This is a puppet. It's essentially a collection of assets linked to each other by pivot points placed in specific spots. And of course, every single asset had to be drawn by hand using mainly the Bezier tool. These lines are called bones. These are what I actually manipulate when animating, but we'll get back to that in just a second. The software I'm using here is Moho Pro. This is the newer version of Anime Studio. Fantastic piece of software for puppet animation. It sucks for traditional frame by frame, but the software definitely wasn't designed for that style of animation. Flash would be much better for that. In addition to having the main puppet rig, there are smart dials. These essentially just allow me to toggle through a sub animation as many times as I want. Bit confusing? Okay, for example, the head turn. To give the illusion that the head is turning from, let's say, left to right, I need to animate the facial features in such a way that at first the facial features are tweened to the right and scaled down along the x-axis to give the illusion of perspective. Of course, if it wasn't scaled down, it would look like this. Nice. Then everything should be tweened to the right, and again, scaled down along the x-axis. In reality, it's a lot more complex than that because, for instance, if you look at the inside of the mouth, the back of the mouth moves in a completely different way than the front, the layer order needs to be changed, and it's just a bit of a nightmare to set up. And of course, I had to do the exact same thing for the body turn, etc. Now, in the 5-minute episode, there were dozens of head turns. Now, I could reanimate the head turn every time, or save that specific animation and link it to the smart bone dial. That way, by manipulating the dial, I can scrub along the timeline of that animation and reuse it as many times as I want. Nice! And with this efficient technique, the episode only took 3 years to make. So I used smart dials to toggle between hand poses, mouth and eye shapes. As for the arms and legs, I used deformation bones and corrective shape keys to get those nice smooth curves. And I applied the same techniques for every character. Alright, well that was boring as hell. Now let's talk about the fun part. Animation. So unlike frame-by-frame animation that requires you to redraw every single frame, puppet animation is very different. Puppet animation works by posing the characters in specific frames. Okay, for instance, let's animate a circle moving from left to right. So let's make it take, 1 second to go from left to right. So when you're a smoothness freak like me, that's 60 frames. So first position, circle is moved to the left side of the screen. Position is memorized on frame 1. This is called setting a keyframe. Then, a circle is placed to the right side of the screen. Again, a position is memorized, this time on frame 60. So what's nice with tweening is that the computer will calculate the position for the 58 remaining frames. And that's it, we're done! Just kidding, that looks like shit. Alright, let's set the keyframes to Bezier, that'll ease in and out the motion. Let's add some anticipation and bounce, that'll give it some mass. Now let's add some squash and stretch, this will make it look more organic and squishy. Let's readjust the timing a little bit to make it look more natural and flow a bit better. Now let's have it follow the arc of motion. Let's use the Bezier curve to change its shape, this will help the circle look more alive. Let's add a secondary animation to make it look startled, this will just make it more interesting to look at. And there you have it! In both animations, a circle going from left to right. And you see, that's the beauty of animation. And of course, a puppet with dozens of bones and controllers gets a lot more complicated to animate than a circle, but I'm sure you get the idea. The butterfly was animated and rendered in Blender because I couldn't for the life of me get a decent looking butterfly cycle in 2D. The side and 3/4 views for the moving backgrounds are classic 3-stage parallaxes, essentially 3 rows of houses and trees moving at different speeds to create the illusion of depth. The front views, however, were a f***ing nightmare to get right. I had 2 bumpy circles rotate then scaled along the x-axis. The houses and trees were then tweened along an arc and scaled down. And you know, I tried other techniques, but yeah. The laser effect was done in After Effects with a free add-on called Saber. It was animated with keyframes just like that circle. Next up, editing and sound design. I exported every scene as a 4K 60 FPS PNG sequence, sometimes in multiple layers so that I could reframe certain elements in post. I edited the visuals in Premiere and sound in Vegas. Most of the sound effects were downloaded off Epidemic Sound and even YouTube. I recorded a lot of my own sound effects too. For instance, I recorded a microwave oven transformer arc for Splendid's laser beam. These are stupidly dangerous, so don't try this at home. I mean, I know I tried this at home, but, you know, I'm a bit of an idiot. Once that was done, music! This is Blake Swift. You might know him as Shady Vox. He's a freelance musician and sound engineer. We spent about a month composing the soundtrack for the episode. All the instruments except for the acoustic guitar are MIDI and are recorded in Mixcraft Studio. And as I'm sure you heard in the episode, Blake did a freaking incredible job.
It helps if the notes are all together.
And the final step was uploading it to YouTube and praying that the video didn't flop after all the effort I'd put into it. And there you have it. That's basically how a dumb 5-minute cartoon is made from start to finish. Hopefully that gave you an idea on how 2D animation can be done and why these videos take so long to make. If you enjoyed this video, I might make a more advanced tutorial on how to animate in 2D or in 3D or how to rig puppets and stuff. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section what you'd be interested in seeing. Definitely subscribe if you don't want to miss those. As usual, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time.